Well, I've solved a very perplexing problem that I've been working on for a long time. I didn't want to go too drastic with this buggy. All I really wanted to do, my main goal, when I decided I was going to rebuild this thing, was I just wanted some fast motors in there with some steel pinion gears. I had considered just leaving the original shocks, the friction shocks on, but they were pieces of junk. I had dremeled the edges out because they would bind up, and I just realized, well, if I just put some inexpensive oil shocks on, I could probably make the suspension be a lot better. Well, what ended up happening is I tried a lot of different things. I ordered 65mm shocks for the front. They were too short. They were pretty much misadvertised, but so I ordered 75mm, a little bit too long. So, but I didn't think even the travel on the 75mm shocks was that good, because the friction shocks had more travel. So I used to have one of these years ago, pre-internet days, pre-eBay, all that. And I remember fooling around with it in the past, and I kind of knew in the back of my mind that rear shock towers, they'll fit the front. But I did remember that, like, the rear shocks, they won't fit on the front. They're too long. The suspension doesn't go up and down as far from the rear to the front. So I threw on these 75mm shocks with the rear tower, and to my amazement, it fit perfectly. The only difference is, now this is the original tower. It's flat on the top. The difference is you got the angle here, the angle there. Well, this body, I'm not sure, because these vehicles come with, if you have an Eco-Dictator or Radio Shack vehicles, the bodies, they can be different. But on this Black Phantom, this lip here, it interferes with the angle of that tower. Same with the other side, same situation. That lip, it's got kind of like a line though. I think I'm going to cut it straight across there. I think I'm just going to cut the lip off. It's a small price to pay for a nice oil shock setup like this. But these are Yaw Racing 75mm shocks. I have another rear shock tower, but I have to dig it out and then assemble the rear. Right now it's all apart, so it's not sitting level at all. The back's totally down. These shocks, these front shocks here, they came with two sets of springs, soft and stiff. I thought these were going to be too stiff initially, but I put turbine oil, I think it's called Zoom Spout, it's very thin oil, I'm not sure the weight, but I used it in these rear shocks because they were so stiff when I tried regular shock oil that it was just too stiff. When I put that turbine oil, they ended up being perfect. So ended up just putting the same thing in the front with the stiff springs, so the situation ended up being pretty midway, which that's what I wanted. Not a super good representation because it's not level, but I wanted the suspension to be ended up being a pretty medium. I didn't want it to be over or under dampened, and I believe I've got this exactly where I want it now. Not too stiff, not too thin, just about right. But yeah, that's the key to it, is rear shock tower, unless you make your own. I didn't want to go that drastic. But yeah, the rear shocks, this video is mainly about shocks. The rear shocks are 85 millimeter. Like I was saying, the friction shocks, they have slightly more travel. But as far as a bolt-on thing, if you have a Radio Shack Black Phantom, pretty much going to be 75 millimeter shocks with a rear shock tower. Maybe you have a donor car, or sometimes on eBay people sell parts or donor cars for real cheap. Shock towers are not that hard to make. You could make one. You just copy the rear shock tower and you could put it there. The one thing I may do is put between the nut here and the nut here, put a metal brace across. Not sure if I'll do it, but it's an idea, because these flex, but may not be a big problem. They flex when they're in stock form anyway with the friction shocks. So just got to dig out that shock tower for the rear, reassemble. Got to get another, well, I have one, I believe. Got to dig out another ball link for that side, cut another rod. I did pick up a 440 tap today, so I'm going to thread the plastic end of the ball link right here. Thread that thing out with the tap. Yeah, I think it's turned out fairly well. My main thing when I started this project, I wanted to put faster motors. I've thought about, well, the last video I made, I was commenting that I would probably remove this TEU 103 Tamiya speed controller, because it only has 50% power in reverse. I was saying in the last video that I would probably replace that with that ESC with two Traxxas XL1s, but I'm thinking, because of the power switch, I'd probably ended up with a situation where I'd have to put two power on-off switches. But then again, maybe not, because the top of the switch where the wires go on, the back of the switch, it's got two rows on each side of prongs. I don't know if they're separate or they're joined. I'd have to test that with an ohm meter. But I'm thinking the cost of the XL1s, that's roughly $40 each, so $80 plus the shipping. Thinking instead of just getting two of those, maybe just get one ESC with reverse, maybe like a no limit ESC. Probably don't need anything that good, but for the money for two ESCs, I could probably get an ESC that would be like a no limit, and I could set it up for full power and reverse. Probably I'll just have to do some research and figure out which one would be the best, because I want this Black Phantom to be pretty much the capability of the original I want it to be able to have full power in reverse. So, but yeah, I don't see anything wrong with cutting the lip off on each side. I think it's a pretty small price to pay. But yeah, I think this situation's pretty much solved. It's not bad at all. I like it. Not too stiff, not too soft. Pretty good. You push it down, it doesn't really bottom out. You have to push it really hard to bottom out, but I think that's about as much travel as you're going to get unless you make your own tower and make it taller. Which I don't want to do. I don't want to be fabricating any towers. I want it to be stock, but yet improved. So the fact that I could improve that with a stock part, that was pretty cool. Hopefully it'll give other people a tip on if you've got parts cars, you weren't really aware of that before. It's something I stumbled across and tried, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, these rear dampers, these were something I believe I got them on eBay. They're I think they're out of Hong Kong or something like that. These were really cheap. These are like $3 or $4 a set plus the shipping. They've got plastic mounting. The cap is aluminum, but the actual top is not. It's plastic. Bottom's plastic. These are aluminum. These Yaw Racing are they're aluminum caps, which those caps tend to bust if they're pop off if they're plastic, especially on the front. So I'll probably end up with an okay situation, even though the rears are plastic on the top. It'll probably be okay, because the front's under more stress with the twisting and turning and stuff than the rear would be. So, but yeah, one thing I just wanted to remind people who have these vehicles, whether it be a Radio Shack Black Phantom or Nico Dictator. Well, right now I've got the bumper off, but that round metal screw mount there that goes in the gearbox for your bumper, that screw that holds your bumper on, very important to put blue thread locker on that screw, because if you don't and that bumper's too loose and it's not on there properly, if you have a crash or if you run the car without the bumper, you can break this whole front gearbox. We all know how difficult it is to come by that front gearbox, since they're not making them anymore. Yeah, I would love to buy a titanium front gearbox. I think these vehicles, the design, the basic concept of these vehicles is very good. I wish they still made something similar to this, some manufacturer, but they don't, obviously. Because I really like the four-wheel drive design. It'd be really cool if they had one with two 540s. Well, I know they've got Tamiya Dual Hunter, but those are really, it's got a lot of gears and parts in them. These are more simplified. I was going to get a Tamiya Dual Hunter, but I decided to restore this. My next project is going to be a Radio Shack Golden Arrow, basically Nico F10. But yeah, these shocks were an extra thing that I was going to do. I'm glad I did it. The next video I'll shoot, you'll see that the rear is reassembled. The body will be a little trimmed on that lip, on this lip. Shouldn't be noticeable really, but yeah, there's nothing to do with these rear shocks. Just put them back on another tower. The other tower I'll have to bore out the holes though to like 5mm. No big deal though. And put it all back together. Fix that steering rod. I'm good to go. So I'll be making at least a couple more videos about this and with a test run. Alright, thanks for watching everybody.